Yá'dá'jíndí, she Tunte Baca Hunsia. Welcome back to another episode of Small Town Res Girls. Today we have a special guest, someone whose name carries a lot of weight in our community. He's a former president, vice president, and longtime tribal council member. He's running again to serve as president of the Mescalero Apache Tribe. He recently sent out a letter to all the tribal members outlining his vision. Please help welcome Gabe Aguilar.
How are you doing, everybody?
Gabe, thank you for joining us today. To start, I want to ask what inspired you to run again in this moment in time?
You know, at this time, I see a lot of needs for our community. I see a lot of things in Washington, D.C. that's going on, you know, with the federal government's, the cuts, you know. In this position, it takes a person that's a people person. It takes a person that doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. It's not about that, it's about our people and getting services for our people. Some people always tease me, like formerly, oh, you're kissing butt. But it's not that. It's actually doing something to help my people. And then as a politician, you have to know that you have to make these connections to get money and to get funding. And I've had many leaders from DC or Santa Fe, they just tell me, hey, where's your tribe at? You guys are not nowhere. And they said, you know, with the floods and the fires, they wish I was there because they know they could call on me and we could have a talk and let's strategize to make things happen quicker and faster.
So I can second that. You have been amazing in your previous term. I got to see firsthand the kind of president that you are, and your heart truly is for the people and the youth, and I think the youth part is so important. And he does have a lot of connections, and we can't go anywhere without people recognizing us. We'll be in the middle of Colorado at the airport and somebody's coming up, Gabe, and I'm like, how do you even know these people? You really take the time to get to know people and make those connections to better your tribe, and I think that's amazing.
You know, during COVID, when I was president, I realized, you know, a lot of the meetings were Zoom, and they were meeting with people all across the country and trying to figure out solutions. I realized that you got to take time to know who you're working with, you know, and there's times that I had to study the people I'm with, and I just took time to just get personal with the people that represent the tribe. You know, the state senators, the state representatives, but also our congressional people and our senators, plus the ones that I had a great opportunity to speak on the Farm Bill whenever former President Bush Blazer was in. He sent me, and I got to be on C-SPAN, and it really highlighted me whenever I got to talk on TV. But I was so nervous the night before I couldn't sleep. But I realized that's what it takes, and I had the council cheering me up from the galley, and it was really awesome to be down there and leading the front. And sometimes like that, I mean, you have to practice your speech 100 times, but it comes with the job.
So one thing that I can add to that is I don't think that I've ever seen a president so committed the way that you were. I remember there were times during COVID where you were out there front line delivering food to people who had COVID and, you know, advocating for them and trying to find funding and trying to be there for the people that had COVID, because it was trying times. We didn't know what the future held. We didn't know how we were gonna get through that. But also the story that I would like to tell people is when there was a kid that went missing and it was 4 a.m, the police called to let you know that there was a child missing. You were up at 4 a.m. and you were out searching for that child. I don't think that I've ever seen another president who's taken the time to do that and be frontline to serve his community. So I do commend you for that, and I can say that you did a great job during COVID. In the letter, you mentioned that not all council members are being kept informed. Why do you think that's happening, and how would you change that?
So, you know, working with the council members that are currently elected, I have a good relationship. I worked with, in my 6 terms, I worked with probably 40 different council members. But I ask them, how's it going? And the answer should never be, I don't know what's going on, or I feel that the administration's doing it on their own. I feel that there's no teamwork, you know, and I feel like I'm on a need-to-know basis. And with me, I ain't got nothing to hide from the council. And I realize in leadership, the Marines, Army, we share everything with the guy above us and the person below us, so we can all know our jobs. And one person always told me this: it's better to ask for permission to ask for forgiveness. So I think that in my spot, it took me 8 years before I ran for president. So I wanted to know the jobs. I wanted to know how to work with my community, the power of the president, because you hold a lot of power. So I really just believe that if the council knows everything that I know, that transparency will be there. There'll be no rumors. And I'll tell you, like during COVID, when I was giving the stimulus payments out, before the meeting is even over, that information was already on Facebook. But it was the accurate information, the date people were getting their checks, and in a way that was a good thing. But the thing is, there's nothing that ever says in that council meeting you can't share in the community. I've always heard you're elected and you represent a different group of community that elected you, and you're able to share all the information with them. And I truly believe it.
So with talking about transparency, what would your day-to-day operations look like if you were in leadership?
Going back, thinking about it now, it all starts with the tribal administrator. Your tribal administrator should know the culture, should know the background, should live here. And I think that, one of their strong points is working with people. In these positions we're in, you got to be humble. You got to know that there are people out there that are struggling. There are people that can't speak up for themselves. There are grandmas raising grandchildren because, something might have happened to their kids. They might be going through a hard time. I think that, I'm here to work with all the employees, but this time I'm gonna give average tribal members a chance. And my goal is to teach them and give them an opportunity to lead. We have people that work their way up, and they work for the tribe for like 20 years, and they get a lot of experience. And the tribe posts jobs, and what I'm seeing is we're hiring non-tribals to come in and do these opportunities that our tribal members have done these jobs. There's tribal members that got degrees. Sometimes when they get degrees, they're put in positions that there's hardly any jobs. So they might have a degree in criminal justice, but they're working at the casino or something. But how do you try to train them so they can work in the field that they got the degree for? Because a lot of the times, there's not enough jobs on the reservation. I'll tell you this, we need more opportunities. We need to focus on more jobs. But right now with the community, it's so tight that when a job opens up, you might have 20 applications. And it's really tough but I think that tribal members should come first. And I agree with a former president that says our tribal members are second to none.
How do you plan to rebuild trust with your community if you were in leadership?
So one thing, I got to build trust with the council, and you got to build trust with the employees. And I think that working with the council, and I think having the council work together, for the community. There's a lot of times that some council members and administration are not going to agree, but at the end of the day, we got to shake hands and walk out of there and still know that we're here for our people. So I think that I have to be an open book in there, and I have to show them everything. There's nothing that I'm going to hide. And if there's somebody saying, oh, you can't do this, can't do that, I want to get the documentation, and I want to share it with the community members and show them this is why we can't, this is why we can. But sometimes somebody will say, oh, we can't do this, but then, well, show me. Well, I heard this from a long time ago. There's a lot of people that says, I heard Wendell did this, I heard this. Show me where it says it, and I'll show what the tribal members, because, I made a lot of videos during COVID. I learned a lot of good communication, but also, you got to make sure that you communicate with your employees so that the biggest reason the tribe exists for jobs is to service the tribal members. And we always must think about that and say, how can we make sure that our tribal members are getting the best service, the best everything, because That's what the community is about. And the trust will come because if you take care of your employees, they'll work twice as hard for you. And I think sometimes good job goes a long way, or when they see you out there, I think that goes a long, long way.
I agree with that. One topic that comes up often is dividend payments. What is your stance on how those should be handled, and how do we balance fairness with financial sustainability?
This is always one of the biggest topics in politics. I look back at Wendell Chino, and I look back at our former leaders. I served with some older leaders where I learned what their goal was. And to this day, I could still remember them 12 years ago saying, we need to make sure our kids have nice clothes during our 4th of July feast. We need to make sure our kids have nice clothes to go back to school. And for Christmas, we got to make sure those kids that don't have anything and the parents don't have anything, might not work, There's a lot of challenges through that tribal members have. Some people can't work. Some people are on a fixed income. Every little bit helps. And I'm a giver. And that's how I feel, and that's how I was taught. I want to work with the council, and my goal would be, and it's never been done, is to maybe set a date by March 30th. I'd like to have a dividend structure where the tribal members don't have to guess what they're getting. You'll know 2 weeks before the feast, when you already know it's going to be planned out like the school planner. You're going to get dividend this day, you're going to get dividends before school, you're going to get dividend and we'll already have it in the calendar, but it's never been done. But if the casino's doing good, if the tribe's doing good, we have to share. And the way I was taught is that the Constitution says we're all shareholders. All of us that are enrolled are part of this tribe. You can't say, I'm just going to give to the youth, I'm just going to give to the elderly, I'm just going to give to the middle age. You have to give it fairly. And if we're going to figure that out, we need to figure it out together, because somebody said, oh, you want to make us broke. It's not about making us broke. We don't have Warner Gaming no more. There's extra funds, there's extra money. The inn's looking to be paid off soon. We need to figure out how to make more money, but we need to figure out how to help our people also, because it's a blessing. I've seen tribes across the country. I take notes in my head. One tribe created an economic thriving force where they have their casinos, but they have government contracting. They even have their own water bottle, and they only have their own electricity. But 80% of their money goes back into economic development. 20% of it goes to the people. And I asked some of the chairwomen and chairmen, how much do your people? They told me, Gabe, our people are blessed. And that's the way I want our people to be blessed. I wish we could do monthly. That's our goals. But I think with Dividend, we start off, we make sure that the basic needs are met. And let's not play games with the people, because last year we went with nothing. And it hurt. And to see it, and I even felt it because I was fighting for a dividend. But I had people that say, people need to go to work and they need to fight for themselves. But there's that small majority that can't fight for themselves. And you can't forget about the little people. The people that you might say don't matter, we're all tribal members. And at the end of the day, we all matter.
You mentioned creating opportunities to bring in more revenue. Can you share any ideas or industries you think the tribe should be exploring? But I want to add before you answer that, I think the general store is a great idea. I've been in there, it's beautiful, they've really renovated it, and I think the goal that they're trying to get at eventually is really good, and I think it's going to bring in a lot of revenue. Okay, go.
We got to take risks that we never done before. I'm watching what other tribes are doing on renewable energy. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about solar, but there's so many companies. How do you know which one's good for the tribe? You have to find a company that we're not just leasing our land, we're partners where we're getting money for leasing, but we're also getting shares where the tribe's making money. And as I'm out there with these other big tribes, they're demanding. And that's the way Mescalero needs to be demanding. We talk about opportunities maybe to bring in more money. a lot of people don't know that we buy a lot of stuff off the reservation. I always thought about one of the biggest things is furniture. This guy on another reservation was saying because of the tariffs, a lot of different companies are leaving overseas trying to come work with tribes. You could make furniture beautiful to sell to tribes and casinos and sell to your tribal members for low cost in a factory, and you sell it for a profit. You know, there's other things such as doors and windows where tribes are starting to make factories, putting people to work. There's so much opportunity out there where we just have to figure out, and we have to not be afraid to ask other tribes, how are you doing this? And that's one of the things that I'm getting there, because a tribe in the East Coast doesn't care what a tribe in New Mexico is doing. We're not in competition with them. We're all trying to make it, and we're all trying to just make more money, because the biggest thing, and I think we all know, all our eggs are in a basket at the end of Mount Gods. If there's a fire or if there's something that happens and we have to shut down, what's going to happen to our tribe? And you know, between the way the world's going right now, water is a big thing. I'm hearing tribes saying they're bottling their water for their people. You know, the inn buys their water from somewhere, but why can't the tribe supply the inn with water? Why can't we protect ourselves for the future? There's tribes that are going into ammunition and guns for the future because we don't know which way the world's gonna go. And I hear that from them, and they're smart. And some of these tribes are like one or two steps ahead. But it just takes time, and it takes sitting down, and it takes listening, because we don't know it all. But if another tribe's successful in something, we need to make sure that we consider it, you know, because a lot of tribes don't have casinos, and they're really successful. So we got to play it like we don't have a casino. How can we make more money for our people?
I like that mentality, and I think that, you know, like you said, we don't know what's going to happen with how the world's going. And I think right now, you know, America's so divided, but us Native American people with all the tribes need to come together and figure out ways to, you know, survive, and resources and revenue. And I really liked your response to that question.
And one of the things I want to say is, like, I was looking at the world. We're on the verge of a civil war. And it's like the Republicans versus the Democrats. But maybe they need to hear it from a Native leader. It's not about which side, it's about the people. And I think one day a Native, we're so like left behind, you know, than other races, where the people in Washington hear from one of us saying, you know what, enough's enough. Care about our people. You know, I spoke, and I was on a board for Missing Murder Indigenous Women, and when I spoke, I said, we're not doing enough, but sometimes we have to look harder, and sometimes we have to show them that our Native men and women mean just as much as anybody out there. Because if it was, like, I always look at the young lady from San Carlos, you know, that was murdered. And I always look at, if it was a different race, it would have been a different story.
Totally agree.
So I feel that, you know, it hurts. And I think once Natives come together and stand up and say, we're one voice, the government's gonna have to deal with us. And then somebody's gonna have to bring all the tribes together, because sometimes we're busy fighting ourselves, instead of, if we come together, all tribes and nations, we're powerful, and we will control the vote. And that's one thing I think about too. So, and I'm not afraid to be part of that.
I like that. Many families in our tribe are going through tough times. How do you believe tribal leadership can better support elders, single parents, or struggling families?
So, you know, as a tribe goes on, there's a lot of things that I worked with the council to do. Prior presidents, we tried to help tribal members that were struggling. You know, we don't know what's gonna happen. We don't know, somebody can have cancer, stage 4, somebody could get in a vehicle wreck, someone, you know, just there's life stuff that happens, you know, and a lot of tribal members don't tell nobody until it's the last minute, but we need to figure ways out to help our people. And, you know, there's just nothing. People call and they say, you know, this happened to me, you know, a fire, you know, a flood. To me, you know, I look at it, You know, there's tribal members that lived in Reynosa, and there's tribal members that got flooded in Head Spring Upper Canyon. There should have been something set up with the funding and asked for maybe 10 trailers back up for flood victims. You know, and after we gave everybody a chance, we figure out who needs it, because you know, you don't want to run on housing. Housing's a big one. It's such a big deal that we need to sit down and roll up our sleeves and work on it, because you know, we have to partner with people. You know, I saw a tribe that built a 136 apartment complex, but they went up. It's a big step for them. Can your tribal members live next door neighbors to each other? And this tribe's finding it out, you know, but in order to do stuff, we got to do stuff we've never done. And for the elderly, you know, there's so much hardship. A lot of elders, they're lonely. You know, I talk to them, and some of them, you know, they used to come to my office and talk to me for like 30 minutes, and I'd give them that time, and that's what it's about. And that's what leadership is about, is you have to be a people person to be in this position. And if you can't sit down and have a conversation, and sometimes the conversations are tough because people are mad. Something happens to them, they come in and they want to express what happened. And you know, one of the things that I always did, you know, during COVID, I was attending all the funerals, is when somebody passed away on the reservation, they wanted to talk to the president or the vice, and I'd bring them in my office and I'd tell them, I'm praying for you, you know, and sorry for your loved one, your loss. Sometimes I knew them, sometimes I didn't, but I would call in the person, the census clerk, and I would say, you know, call a groan and help them set up tell them they're coming, you know, tell them to make sure that they don't overcharge them. That just little extra for the tribal members, you know. When I was president, nobody knew this, but I had Otero Electric's Mike at Otero on speed dial. People have hardships where they couldn't pay their pay their light bill. And when their lights are gonna be turned off, they were calling me. I would call them and say, Mike, they just started a job, they need 2 weeks to pay. So I would get them a 2 weeks pass to help them get through to the next paycheck. And me and Mike at first were there's some people that paid a lot, majority paid. There's some that didn't, you know, but I told them, you have to do it and you have to pay this, because that's part of keeping your house on, you know, so me and him at first, we kind of hit, but we got this respect for people that is there to help them. And I was calling more than I knew, just to help tribal members, but that's part of the job.
Yeah, I agree. So you talked about during COVID how you would have the families, you know, come in and stuff. I want to add that you were still having an open door policy during that time, and you were putting your family and yourself at risk for COVID, and you know, sadly it hit your home, but you still handled it, and you still were frontline and caring, you know, helping your people and delivering stuff, and you did praying, yeah. And I think that you did an outstanding job during COVID, during trying times when we didn't know how to, you know, get through the day-to-day. You didn't know what to do, but you shut the tribe down and you did everything to, you know, protect your people because you cared. And I think that you handled COVID-19 very well, and I don't think anybody could have done it better than you.
And you know, the part I go back and, you know, after all the deaths on the reservation, we lost over 100 people in 2020. My whole time as a president was COVID. Safety, saving lives. This time I just think I want to focus on the community, and I want a chance to do the things that I wish I could have done for the people, because there's a lot of help and love that I want to give. And that's why I'm running again. And you know, I've been in 6 terms a long time. That's a lot of people tell me, Gabe, you're one of the senior ones now because you have a lot of experience, but I want to share it because there's going to be a day that, you know, I'm going to be tired, you know, and I want to make sure that I pass down the knowledge and make sure that everybody knows this is what I learned from the elders at the table. You have to listen, and you have to, in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good listener.
How many years do you have under your belt?
About 12.
So you had all those years to really learn everything to be a good leader, and I think that you were willing to sit and learn and have those tough conversations and go through all of that, and I think that's what made you a really good leader. Back to the open door policy, what do you feel that the importance of that is?
So, there's times you're in meetings, or there's times you're in travel in Santa Fe, or, places, but when you're home, you should always try to see your people. You do not know what's going on in your community unless you talk to your people.
Exactly.
And there's times I've seen over 30 people in one day. And I remember after I won presidency, there was a long line of people. Everybody either wanted to say congratulations or just talk to me and stuff. And I tell them, I see the line out there. I got 5 minutes. How can I help you? Like during COVID, I was wearing a mask, and I still had an open door policy. But people wanted to meet face to face because there's a lot of things you can't really say over the phone or express. But I think in leadership, there's people that I know and that I've talked to that we cried together, we prayed together, and we disagreed together sometimes because there's sometimes I can't help you this way, but I can help you this way because, it takes, like, in my position, I've been in the military where there's people's lives at danger. When you become a sergeant, I don't want to say, but you gotta take care of people. And that's where my leadership comes from is, sometimes when I was in Iraq one time, mission was over, I just barely got promoted to corporal. There was 1,500 people that ate before me before I ate. But that leadership showed me, take care of the people that take care of you. So the open door policy is very, very, very critical. I think that you need to see your people. I think that, whenever somebody passes away, if they ask you to speak at the funeral, if they ask you to be there, or if they're one of your employees, that respect for the people, because not just that, but whenever I was president, I used to try to make it to every feast. And it's out of respect to the family because I heard that Wendell did that. I heard Wendell tried to make the first day or the last day. I heard these stories, from our elders saying how Wendell would show up and say, I hope you have a great, great feast. And I'm praying for you. And that's one of the things that people knew me when I was in vice president, I was out there, but it was so good to be out there. I didn't even know some of the families, but they see me, they smiled, we smiled, shook hands. And that's, as the president, you're a public relations person, you're the face of the tribe. There's a lot of business you got to take care of, but you can't forget about your people. And you got to be approachable. If you're not approachable, people feel that there's no connection, and I'm gonna prove to people, even the people that I disagree with, all of that's behind me. I'm gonna work with everybody. There's nothing that is bothering me, and I don't hate nobody. I feel that the people are gonna see a great leader, and that's just what I want to bring, great leadership.
So what are your plans for the youth? Does this mean possible open gyms again?
So, been thinking about the youth a lot. Whenever I was president, vice president, I used to volunteer to open the gyms to help work with the youth, I have a lot of ideas, and I feel that our kids need us. And with the youth, I was thinking about creating a youth council because I saw one of our sister tribes in Arizona that had a youth council, and once a month the council would be, they could be students from Mescalero, Toroso, Ruidoso, or neighboring areas, but the youth would vote them. They would have a voice for the youth, but I would allow them to sit in on one council meeting a month, work with the council, but also travel to Santa Fe, travel to Washington, and get them involved and let them see their leadership at work, because the youth are the ones that are going to see it and say, man, that's who I want to be. And I see other tribes doing that, including the youth, because one year when I was vice president, we used to have the jet, and I remember we got on the airplane and went to Washington to support a couple of our people that were at the youth conference in Washington. We showed up and the youth were freaked out when we walked in. But one thing about the youth also is working with other tribes. I got to visit, there's one of the things I seen for the youth was a skate park. And I talked to the tribal leader, and he said, let's get you elected and we're gonna build a skate park. So one of the skate park, I wanna do a skate park. I wanna do, cause skating and skaters, a lot of them don't get seen, and there's a lot of skaters that passed on. I wanna kind of like even have a skate park and maybe honor some of the skaters that were on there, because not everybody's into sports, and that's what I seen over there is like, this skate park is in honor of this skater, and you have like a little wall of honor, which was pretty cool to me, because I know a lot of skaters that passed on. And I just think that I want to bring stuff. If somebody wants to say, I want soccer, let's bring soccer to Mescalero. Let's do lacrosse, but for the youth, one of the youth, I was playing at the Veterans Park in basketball, and he said, you need to bring more people to the reservation to inspire basketball players, football players, baseball players, volleyball, whatever, just to inspire. And they said, we really like that. And I told them, I heard a story about our late great Wendell Chino, and he would travel across the country and meet all these people, but he knew his people couldn't go and see them, so he would bring them to his people to enjoy. And that's one of the things I feel as a leader, is to share with the youth, is to inspire. I want Mescalero, we got our first state championship. I want to have a first Division I player. I want, the first big singer. I'd love to have somebody just thrive where our youth have talent shows and talents to show how spectacular they could sing our songs in our language. They could play the flute, the piano, but show off, because like I said, sometimes we focus on sport, but we got to focus on everybody. And the thing about me is these guys, these kids, they're not afraid to approach me and tell me. And it was funny, when I was president, I had these two, when I walk into school, when are we getting dividend? And that's one of the small. And when I was president one time, and this cute little fifth grader walked up to me and asked me to autograph their book. But I did it, and that's to inspire them. If I felt like if I didn't do it, what kind of leader would you be? And you should take every opportunity to speak, but you speak life to the youth. You speak, you tell the youth, respect your parents, respect your grandparents, but always keep a positive mindset.
Yeah. And I think that our youth are our future, whether, we want to give them the time or not. And I think one thing about you is you've always given your time to the youth. And I know there's a lot of kids that I grew up with that even to this day, they're like, oh, where's President Aguilar? Where's President Gabe? And they just know you by that, because you really have left a mark on these youth, and they enjoyed, somebody that they could relate to. And you've always supported all the kids, no matter if it's Redoso, Tularosa, Mescalero. You've always supported all the kids everywhere. When they've asked you to go to games, you're there. And I think that your heart is truly for the youth, and I enjoy that. So you talked about the Veterans Park. So talk about that a little bit.
I'm so excited that the Veterans Park is open. There's been so many leaders over the years that put a lot of time and planning into it. It really inspired me to honor veterans. I thought about like honoring veterans monthly. one of the cool things is that somebody told me and that I really never took into consideration. I'm the first Marine president. And it kind of like got me thinking like, man, I didn't even know that. And I see that. I would like to know who was the first recruiter from the tribe, whether it was Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard. Who was the first recruiter? Who was the first tribal member to do 20 years in the military? I seen that we had our first drill instructor in the Marines, Mr. Jaron Carrillo. Things like that is an honor, you know, and doing stuff above, you know, we had a lot of people that served, you know, and as I went to the Veterans Park and we opened up and we spoke and I got to speak, I found out that we only have a handful of Vietnam veterans left. This November, I want to honor them, you know, because we don't know if they're going to make it. They came back with a lot of disabilities. You know, I'm a disabled veteran, you know, and I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm so proud, but I feel what they felt. And I just feel that, you know, this veteran park's for everybody and it's for the youth, but I do want to see events, you know, and I want to see people use it because it's going to look beautiful once they get the names on there. And it's going to have every person, whether they're a tribal member or they're an affiliate, but they live in our community, their names will be posted on there. And
that's awesome.
And I'm just so excited.
So my sister, I went to the state fair with her, and she said that she takes my nephew over there every day, and he just absolutely loves it. And she said there's so many people that go and utilize it. So I think that's awesome. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been there yet, but I'm gonna plan on going soon.
Awesome.
And lastly, what would you say directly to a tribal member who's unsure about who to vote for? What do you want them to know about your heart as a leader?
You know, I've had a lot of time to think, you know, and I've had a lot of time. You know, I always want to be proactive. You know, I've always want to try to serve my tribal members the best I can. I'd love to think of things how to help our people because, you know, sometimes when you're a leader, it's like a battle plan. You know, how can I, whether you're having a community event, whether you're taking care of your employees, whether you're fighting fire, whether you're fighting flood, whether you're participating at the feast, whatever you're, whether it's a day with the churches, whatever it is, I mean, you really got to be involved in your community and not be afraid to be out there. One of the things that I learned is that, you know, you gotta, the people are gonna tell you how they feel no matter what. You take it, you learn, because in this job, there's no book that teaches you how to be the president. There's no nothing. You vote for the people and you check their heart. Last year, I was on council and to not give dividends really broke my heart. When you have the money and you don't do it, you know, because the leader you select, you don't know the way they grew up. You don't know where they came from. And everybody on this reservation grew up different. You know, I've been in positions where everything that I've done, people depended on me. And I think that this time, you know, my goal is to care about the community, you know, and make sure that we're okay. When I mean that is I look at, like, I saw statistics on diabetes. I seen where a tribe declared war on diabetes. We gotta get things under control to protect our people from passing away. Mental health, you know, addiction, sitting down, having a conversation, because our people are really, really good people. Sometimes they get lost, but we can't give up on them.
I totally agree.
And I think that, you know, as a leader, you can't get too far up here where you forget about your people, because, you know, one day you could have all this power and the next day you could have nothing. So the way you treat people with power, it shows who you are. And I think that, you know, a lot of people were hurt when I walked away after COVID, but I was really heartbroken for my people. I mean, we lost people that never seen again. They went into a hospital and got on the ventilators, and I couldn't even believe they're gone. So nobody knows this, that, you know, like us, when people pass, our families like to dress our tribal members and pray for them, and none of that stuff was happening for COVID. So I got into it with the funeral director, and he took me back there and we opened it up, and I seen the way the bodies were wrapped and like mummies and stuff. And I had to go out there and explain to the people why we couldn't do this. And it really broke my heart. And a lot of people said, you shouldn't have left. I know, but I mean, I had to heal my heart. And my heart breaks for my people because I feel that I could just do such a great job. And I just like, there's people that I know that are in leadership in Santa Fe and Washington that will bend over backwards to help us. We just have to ask. And it's all about, like you say, it's all about making the connections, you know. And I'm gonna tell the people, you know, if you like the way it's going right now, I respect you, but, you know, our goal as leaders is to make money and to take care of our people. Our goal is to pray for opportunity, prayer, because without faith in God, Matt, Diego and Dunn, it's about, if you don't believe that there's something good gonna happen, nothing good will happen. You have to believe that no matter what, good things are coming to the Mescalero Apache Tribe. And I want to tell my people that this time I'm gonna prove to you that I'm gonna do big things, and I'm gonna work as a team. I'm gonna work with the vice president, whoever is elected, the council members. I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna try to get to know their strong points, you know, and help them to put in there, because I want to make sure that we cover all of the departments, because a lot of people say, we're getting left out, you know, it's about this, about that. It's about everybody, and give everybody their time, because, you know, I always look at it like, what could I have done better, you know, and that's the point. And one of the things, when I was in Washington, there was a lot of things going on during the Farm Bill, and a lot of tribes are trying to talk to like some of these leaders, Congress and stuff, and they wouldn't give us natives and leaders of tribal day. But then here comes Gabe Aguilar, and a former Marine, Iraq veteran, former Army, Afghanistan. They gave me time, not because of who I was, but because of what I've done in my service. But I realized if I have to use that to help my people, that's what I'll do. And sometimes those leaders up there, they don't listen to what natives have to say unless it's election. You know, a lot of them just come around during time, but no, you're gonna have to hold them feet to the fire and say, you know what? You're gonna have to come to Mescalero and see us, because I always tell people, and people don't understand this, it takes us 4 hours to get to Santa Fe going through Albuquerque. The tribes up north can make it there in 15 to 10 minutes. You know, we are at a disadvantage in New Mexico, you know, so we have to make sure that our people are put on the map, and that we speak up, and that we're at every meeting, because the pie is already small. We don't want to make sure that we get less. So we have to be there. I'm going to have to sit on every board that's offered, whether it's Indian gaming. We're going to have to get back to the National Congress American. We're going to have to be on everything. But that's how a successful tribe is, because if you're not afraid to speak, when you speak on behalf of your people, because as a president, you're the representation of everybody. And if you're on national television, or if you're somewhere, your people are with you. And that's during your time. And that's what I want to do. And I want to leave a legacy like Wendell Chino. During COVID, I left a legacy, but I think one day we're going to look back and see who who are the leaders in Indian country, you know, because I know I worked with the Navajo Nation and the Pueblos, and, you know, we were all just pulling our hair out, but, you know, I seen it, but, you know, one day people are gonna realize the stuff we did and the stress we occurred, it hurt our families. It really took a stress on all of us, even to the people to this day, I still pray for the ones that lost loved ones, because that is so trying on this lifetime that I think that we need to honor one day the people that we lost, because we didn't really, I remember there could only be 10 people at a funeral. I mean, it was so bad, it's so heartbreaking that it just feels like a bad dream. And that's why I think that I was robbed during my time as president, because right after I got elected, 2 months later happened COVID, and I feel this time that I'm gonna prove to the people and I'm gonna do amazing things, and I think the people are gonna rejoice. You know, there's times that we're gonna have to pray. Like I always tell people, you know, if the doctor says you're gonna die, what are you gonna do? You need to get down and you gotta pray. You gotta ask for forgiveness, healing, and it's just, you gotta know that there's a higher calling, higher power that's gonna heal your body, because sometimes when the doctors just tell you that you're like defeated as it is, but with your strength, your power as an Apache, you can accomplish anything, and you can beat anything. And that's what I feel is like. I feel that something's been telling me, run again, help your people, but this time build leaders, so that one day, you know, because our leaders keep getting younger and younger, and you got to work with them. You got to teach them how do you run a meeting? How do you call it to order? How do you allow somebody floor privilege? How do you allow, you know, it takes experience, you know, and I just think that that's what, you know, welcoming, like some state leaders told me, when you were in there, you just welcomed us, welcome. And that's what, when you came into town, you took us to lunch, but you welcomed us. And that's what our tribe needs to welcome new opportunities, welcome everything. And that's what I plan to do, is just be out there everywhere.
That was great, and I really love that, and I think that that's so empowering. But for those of you that are going to vote and you're unsure of who to vote for, take the time to go talk to all of these candidates and truly get to know them and truly get to see where their heart and what their goal is if they are to get into leadership. That would be my advice to you all. Gabe, thank you for sharing your time, your heart, and your vision with us today. We truly appreciate it. And to our listeners, the election is so very important. However you choose to vote, make sure your voice is heard. You've been listening to Small Town Res Girls, where the voices of our community are heard. Until next time, remember to take care of each other, stay strong, and stay grounded. Thank you, Gabe, and we hope to see you soon.